All right, welcome back, Truth Seeker. It is December 29th, 2022. Again, the date 12/29. Often big headlines on this day because 12/29 is the 201st prime. And again, 201 is a very special number to a certain order, and that is the Jesuit order. And that's why the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, is the first to live in Suite 201. And it's why the news media was sure to let you know that Argentina's star football player Messi was staying separate from the team in room 201, of course, winning the World Cup for Argentina, the Pope's native country, the day after the Pope's birthday. But today, 12/29, again, the 201st prime, we're seeing a lot of stories in the headlines that we've already documented in the past that have everything to do with 201. They said today, Benjamin Netanyahu and the most far-right militaristic government in the history of Israel takes power today. And recall, June 13th, 2021, that was the day Netanyahu stepped down, which was just temporarily. June 13th was the day leaving 201 days left in the year. And of course, he's the leader of the State of Israel, its official title, which in Gematria, State of Israel equals 201, just like the Jesuit order does. And let's not forget that David Ben-Gurion, who declared Israel a nation, who was its first prime minister, died in history 201 days after the anniversary of Israel's establishment. So it's easy to see why Netanyahu, with the most far-right militaristic government in the history of that nation, which isn't that long of a history, takes office today. Of course, the Jesuits who created Israel, and again, if you don't know who the Jesuits are, they are the military order of the Catholic Church that was founded by Jews who converted to Catholicism. And right now you're hearing a lot about a guy who's Catholic, who's been pretending to be Jewish. That's another big headline right now, the rep in New York. So anyhow, Netanyahu today, we're going to talk a lot about what this means for next year, 2023. But also today, George Floyd back in the headlines. Again, remember his full name, George Perry Floyd equals 201. His baby mama's name equals 201. Right after he was killed, you had a story of another Minneapolis man, Lamar Ferguson, whose name was 201, who said he was beaten by the same group of cops, which reminded us of Ferguson, Missouri, where Black Lives Matter jumped off, right next to the Jesuit St. Louis University. Of course, Michael Brown, 201. Again, for people who are new here, from Israel to the Black Lives Matter movement, it's all Jesuit. The Jesuits are the Illuminati. Of course, we know that because the Illuminati was founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, who died in history 201 days after the anniversary of the Illuminati's establishment. But don't forget, George Floyd was also killed exactly 201 weeks after Adama Traore, who was killed on the 201st day of the year, which was July 19th, 2016. July 19th is the 201st day in a leap year. And again, in Europe, after George Floyd was killed, they had massive protests with Adama Traore and George Floyd's names paired together because they were both killed in similar fashion by police, but both huge 201 rituals. And again, Adama Traore was killed in France, Paris, France, which is where the Jesuits are from. That's why Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope. And his native country, Argentina, just beat France after Messi stayed in hotel room number 201, like Pope Francis is the first to be in Suite 201. And again, as all this is happening, we're hearing about Pope Benedict on his deathbed, who's 95 years old, from Germany, like how the Jesuits were created to counter the 95 Theses written by Martin Luther out of Germany, which reminds of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. on the 95th day of 1968, 201 days before the nation's first major gun control, where they started putting serial numbers on guns. But then also today in the headlines, on 12/29, supposedly Russia with the worst missile strike yet on Ukraine on 12/29. And what have we been documenting since even before the war began, before we predicted dead on what day this whole conflict would start? Again, 12/29, the 201st prime, go back to 2021, Biden's first day over in Europe at the European Union, which equals 201. He warned Putin not to go into Ukraine. That was 201 days after Biden's birthday. This year, on the one-year anniversary of that, the headline was that Russia took over the Donbass region where the military conflict began. And guess what Donbass region equals? Yes, 201. And then, of course, last year on Pearl Harbor Day, also in 2021, December 7th, Biden and Putin met to discuss Ukraine 201 days after the first Jesuit Ignatian year began, only for the military conflict again to kick off by the numbers. And all year we've been documenting these rituals with 201 and Russia, Ukraine. So sure enough, today they got to have a big headline on 12/29 because it's the 201st prime that, it's the worst missile strike yet. And I'm sure there's even more 201 stuff floating out there on 12/29. But as for what's to come in 2023, remember, very important secret society, Skull and Bones equals 201. The movie about it, The Skulls, came out 201 days after Paul Walker's birthday, who was the star of that movie, who gets a red Porsche in the movie, only to die in a mysterious way in a red Porsche years later, 5 years to the day of George Herbert Walker Bush dying, who was a member of Skull and Bones, who was number 41. Skull and Bones does also equal 41 in gematria. Yale equals 43. He was the 43rd vice president. His son was the 43rd president after the election came down to Florida, where his brother was the 43rd governor. Of course, Florida also equals 43. But anyhow, Skull and Bones, the powerful secret society, they identify by the number 322. They're at Yale, which was established in 1701. That means Yale is going to turn 322 years old in 2023. And it reminds that the founder of the Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, died again 201 days after the anniversary of its establishment, but also on the 322nd day of the year, November 18th, 1830, 322. Remember, in gematria, Jewish mysticism equals 201, and the key Jewish mysticism teaching is Kabbalah, where the physical model is the tree of life, mentioned in Genesis 3:22. 3 pillars, 22 paths in the tree of life. In Kabbalah, where this code of letters and numbers comes from, that is called gematria. But again, next year, Yale's 322 years old, where Skull and Bones is, who's modeled after the Knights Templar, the old military order of the Catholic Church, who got the knowledge of Kabbalah when they raided Jerusalem in the time of the Crusades and then brought it back to the Catholic Church. Of course, 322, the reflection of that number is 223, and 2023 is a lot like 223. Another thing that equals 201 is the Holy Bible. And as we know, these psychopaths use the Bible like it's a playbook. In the end of the Bible, in Revelation, it says the synagogue of Satan will rule in the end times. There's a letter written to the Church of Philadelphia about the synagogue of Satan. In gematria, the synagogue of Satan equals 223. So does Philadelphia, a lot like 2023. The synagogue of Satan are, again, as it's described in the Bible, false Jews. We're getting a big story at the end of 2022 that we know is going to transition into 2023 about a Catholic who claims to be a Jew, who is not, but is a liar. And he has all kinds of lies. He lied about where he went to school. He lied about where he works. He's lied about everything. Do you think this story is an accident, or do you think it's all part of the ritual and the riddle, and he's just another actor on the world stage playing his part? The answer is obvious if you know what's going on. This George Santos, this is all part of the joke of going into next year. And let's think more. Again, the synagogue of Satan, 223, the 48th prime. What year was Israel established? Of course, in 48. What else equals 48? Illuminati, evil, tree. It matters that tree and evil both equal 48 because there is an evil tree of life. Again, it's even mentioned in Genesis 3:22. And hold on, losing my train of thought. For the last 2 days, I did not get a good night's sleep. But hold on, I'll get it back on thought. I'll get it back on track. Okay, so again, the synagogue of Satan next year. Now, Israel was established in 48. That means they turned 74 years old this year, and they will be 74 until May 14th, which is Israel's birthday. And remember, May 14th is written 14/5 in the majority of the world, like 145. David Ben-Gurion equals 145, who declared it a nation. Catholic equals 145. There's 145 more chapters in the Catholic Old Testament than Protestant. Old Testament's Jewish. But again, Israel's 74 right now, going on 75, two numbers that matter a lot. In Gematria, Jewish equals 74, Masonic 74, Occult 74, Energy 74, Gematria 74, English 74, Lucifer 74. So is Jesus 74, so is Cross 74, so is Messiah 74, so is Gospel 74, so is Parable 74. The division between Judaism and Christianity is Jews say the Messiah still hasn't arrived, and Christians say the Jewish Messiah has arrived. So Christianity is, again, the New Testament, this new story that extends on to the Old Testament. But if you're Jewish, you believe that the New Testament's a forgery and a fraud, and Jesus is a fraud. Thus what's written in the Talmud. But anyway, all of this stuff is Jewish at the end of the day, even the Christian religion. It's just you're a different type of Jew. And again, this is the narrative that's playing out, and this is why everything is from the scripture. This is why the script that we're living out is from the scripture, and from understanding this, it's why we've been able to predict everything from elections to news stories to sports seasons, because it's all tied in. So what is going to happen in 2023? Again, the synagogue of Satan, going to be a very significant year. They're mentioned in Revelation, which is a chapter full of war. Other clues in recent times for what we can expect. Right now you have the Arab nations worried and saying that they expect a military conflict just on the horizon with what Netanyahu's doing. And again, with regards to Israel being 74 years old right now, let's not forget the word killing equals 74. So does holiday, and we know there's always funny business going on around the Jewish holidays. Just like Jewish equals 74. And let's not forget what happened this year on Israel's 74th birthday. You had the supposed white supremacist shooting at the Tops in Buffalo in a predominantly black neighborhood. Remember that happened on Hillary Clinton's 201st day of her age. And she cut the ribbon at the store because it was a big political thing when it opened. And of course, she's Jesuit educated like Bill is, who went to Georgetown. And then you had the Uvalde shooting 201 days after Matthew McConaughey's birthday. And again, this number's all over all their divisive propaganda. But anyway, they blamed it on a white supremacist. Remember, alphabetic order and numerology, white supremacist equals 74. Kind of like how Independence Day in that cipher is 74 and holidays 74 and all the founders were white men of secret societies. Anyhow, the oldest Jew in the Old Testament, or the oldest Hebrew, if you'd rather put it that way, was Methuselah, who was black. So the people we call Jewish today, we don't really think of them as black people. Occasionally the NBA will throw you a story, who are a league run by white Jews, where Amari Stoudemire discovers he's actually Jewish. But again, you got all the clues for what's to come. White supremacy. What is that? That is Israel. Israel is white supremacy. A stolen history. A nation of the synagogue of Satan. A nation established by a numerical code. And so much by a numerical code, people didn't even get the sick little joke that they pulled off. David Ben-Gurion, who's the founder of Zionism, he died in history on July 3rd at age 44. Zion equals 44. So does Israel. So does Netanyahu. So does military. Huge number with military history, 44. It's the year the U.S. deployed the most troops to World War II. But anyhow, never forget when Netanyahu had his 44 seconds of silence as a threat to Obama. And they always acted like Obama was some kind of villain to Israel, as he gives them more money than any other president ever had before until Trump came in there. Anyway, don't forget Joe Biden equals 44 either, as wingman, who's now the president over here, who supposedly got the most votes ever, even though liberal Seattle doesn't have a single Joe Biden bumper sticker or yard sign anywhere and never has. Anyhow, I say that because I'm up here. But meanwhile, back when Obama was the most popular president there ever was, everybody had at least 10 like Obama bumper stickers. That's the only Biden bumper sticker you'd still find, one that says Obama Biden from 2008. Anyway, 2023 will be the year of the synagogue of Satan. Ukraine, Russia, look into history. Look into the Bolshevik Revolution. Look into who the Ukrainian population is. It's no secret. And also look into what that devil who still lives on said, Henry Kissinger. He predicted that around this time Israel would end. I'm having trouble imagining that, but that came out of Henry Kissinger's mouth. So we'll see how crazy it gets. Maybe they relocate the synagogue of Satan. You know, maybe it gets so crazy in 2023 they got to relocate Israel to Ukraine. Because right now the only place we're sending more money to than Israel is Ukraine, which also has the same synagogue of Satan population. And still, meanwhile, we haven't seen any evidence of a war. Unless you count, CNN in the opening days showing you the prompt scene they were on with the blow-up doll on the ground where the anchor told you that was a dead body. And you had to be a special kind of stupid to not see it was a blow-up doll. And again, if they're doing stories like that, and you think there's a real war going on, you're a special kind of stupid. So, and realize it's the same thing. You can't talk about, you can't talk about the jab, the death jab. You can't talk about anything that's real without being censored and taken down for whatever, misinformation. Again, that's the Orwellian age we live in. You put out facts, you make correct predictions, you write the most accurate book in the history of the world before any of the pandemic happens. You get labeled the liar, the misinformation agent. It's like, that's funny because everything I wrote about and my predictions have all been dead on. Meanwhile, everything you forecasted, including what's coming out of the White House, that we're all going to die if we're not jabbed, is completely false. And in fact, it's the other people who are dying when we predicted that before the jab was even out. Go back and listen to what Bill Gates, talk about Mr. 201, William Henry Gates, 201, co-sponsor of Event 201, married to Melinda in the arranged marriage like I predicted before they even got divorced, that their marriage was only for and in tribute to the planned pandemic. And I can prove it all day. But again, main co-sponsor of Event 201. And they even got divorced. It synced up with the pandemic in tribute to the same numbers. Anyway, that's how gross this synagogue of Satan is. And take a good look at Bill Gates. It's not hard to see that he comes from the same Ashkenazi bloodline. Not hard at all to see. But, 2023. You know it's going to get nasty while Israel's 74. And when they go into 75. And coming back to the shooting on the 74th birthday of Israel at the Tops, the store with the big cube on it, like how the rabbis go around with the cube on their head, because a cube has 6 sides, like Saturn's the 6th planet, and the cube represents Saturn. And of course, there's cubes at the site of all their big operations, like the World Trade Center, where 2 towers became 0 before it became 1. Cubes all over the world, from Mecca, again, all the Abrahamic religions controlled by the same people, to divide the people, to keep them fighting amongst themselves while they're ruled over by the tyrant psychopaths. But that top shooting, of course, it was on Jefferson Street, named after Thomas Jefferson, who died on 7/4, along with John Adams on the same day in 1826, 1826 days before Monroe died on 7/4. Again, the big killing number. Look up the song Gematria, the killing name, where Gematria, English, killing, occult, they're all 74, just like Jewish. Look at all the people I just talked about for Christmas Eve and Christmas that died in connection to 74, like Jesus and Cross is 74, the symbol of Jesus' execution by the state, the same state that puts their hand on the Bible to show you how good they are and how honest they are. But 2023, it's going to be a bad year. And they're telling you everything right now. The leaders in the area saying that they're expecting war. And again, right along the biblical script. And of course, all the religious people who are sucked into these religions, they're going to say, this is good. This is good. This is prophecy playing out. This means Jesus is about to return. And then over in Israel, they're going to say, this is the sign that the Jewish Messiah is about to arrive. This is the sign that Temple Mount's about to explode so we can build the 3rd temple. And then Donald Trump's just standing in the background. Remember, you guys, Israel was selling that shekel to raise funds to build the 3rd temple. You think if Trump comes back, we might see finally why those funds were raised on a shekel with his head on it? Again, all of these things are close, and it's not going to be pretty for the world. We know they have plans to depopulate. They are doing it right now. Right now, it's a slow trickle with the jab, but it'll get a lot worse when their big war comes, and their big war will come. That's what these people do all throughout history. And again, I mean, you see what they've been doing all year with Russia, Ukraine, and continuing to pay tribute to 1939 in Poland when Hitler invaded Poland. Again, for people who forgot, on March 9th, we provoked Putin by sending Patriot missiles, which equals 201, to Poland on 3-9 to Poland. Get it? 39, 3-9. And then 39 days after Putin's birthday, that's when we got the story of Russian missiles landing in Poland, which the CIA confirmed, only for the next day them say, oh, actually they were Ukraine's missiles. But yeah, all of this is a build-up to something much bigger. And again, we know how important these numbers are to these people. 74, 223, 322. Yale, a major one of their power centers, again, turning 322 years old next year. Netanyahu coming back. I mean, it's all right there, right? Race and religion, how they keep people divided, fighting amongst themselves. And you can see who's pulling the strings on all of it by the same numerical code. You want to know what else is funny that's in the mainstream headlines today? I see that the news did not break. It looks like the news actually broke on August 23rd, but there's headlines about it today on 12/29. It's funny that it broke on August 23rd because that's Kobe Bryant's birthday and he was Mr. 666. But today it's big in the news on 12/29 that Boston, from April 28th through April 30th, of course April 30th is the anniversary of the founding of the Church of Satan, but they're going to have their biggest satanic festival yet, and it's not hard to see why they're doing it in Boston. Boston equals 22 like satanic, and we know what just happened to Boston in the 22nd championship for them in the year 22, losing to the Warriors by the numbers, which was all foretold on the Pope's birthday. You guys weren't here to see it, go back and watch. Again, you learn this knowledge, you call the sports games before they happen, as we've been doing for a decade, just like we call the elections, the news. Again, you learn this knowledge, you see what's coming before it happens. But anyway, Boston equals 22 like satanic. All this 201 stuff, remember Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, he died 201 days after his own birthday and 201 days before the sitting Pope's birthday at the time. And of course, even in Gematria, Catholic Pope equals 201, which is who the Jesuits serve. And now we just happen to be again in the time of the first Jesuit Pope, who's the first to live in Suite 201, whose birth name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, equals 201, like the founder of the Jesuits, Ignatius Loyola, is 201. But yeah, today, you just look at everything in the news today, all the huge 201 rituals. You're reminded of the Jesuits, the military order that established Israel by the Catholic Code. And again, for all the people out there who think Jews run the world, again, I mean, you guys should get off that because you know that's not true anymore. Who got the worst of the Event 201 pandemic? Israel did. Israel got the worst. So you can't say Jews run the world, because now you've seen the evidence that there's no way that that's true. If Jews ran the world, do you think they would have used their people the most as guinea pigs? No. Remember, Adolf Hitler's birth name? Adolphus Hitler. His real name is Adolphus. Adolphus Hitler, 201. You know? Wore red and black like the Jesuits. The Catholic Church never said a peep. Where do you think all the money came from for the Nazis? I mean, where's that piece of history? Because Germany was bankrupt. Germany had to pay reparations for World War I. Country was completely bankrupt. Everybody's in poverty. All of a sudden, they have enough financing to have the greatest military the world had ever seen. I mean, nobody's army was anywhere near as good as Germany's. The only reason they lost the war is because they had so many people fighting against them. You know, it was like 50 Davids versus 1 Goliath. Where did they get the money to do that? Think it came from the church, the richest thing in the world? And why are they the richest thing in the world? Because they conquered the world. Because they made everybody put money in their plate. And if you weren't putting it in at the church, you were putting it in at the government level because they control your government. That's why D.C. is all Roman architecture. And the Jesuits have been there in D.C. for longer than the federal government has. I mean, why do you think they moved to? Why do you think the federal government went from Philadelphia to D.C., the Jesuit city? which was called Rome on the Potomac. I mean, all this stuff is so obvious. Everything is so obvious. Everything is so obvious. Let's celebrate Jesus' birthday on the Catholic day that they celebrate the sun in the sky's birthday. I wonder what's going on. The sun at its low point, dead in the sky, for the same amount of days. That's the story of the resurrection, when the sky resurrects, or the sun resurrects on December 25th. I wonder what this story's about. Sun. What does that word mean? Everything's so obvious. And then people get mad because I point out more obvious. Talmud's a nasty book. But is it wrong? Is it wrong what it says in there? It says Jews are more intelligent, thus they're the only people who should be considered to be human, because non-Jews are dumb, and their only real purpose is to work and labor and slave, so that Jews don't have to. And again, the Jesuits are Jews who converted to Catholicism. It doesn't mean that every Jew is running the show and every Jew is benefiting from this. But you look at the top, it's not hard to see who's running everything, from banking to news to media to Hollywood to sports teams to all the things that control the minds of the masses. But you got to be specific about who it is. Who it is. And by the way, you guys, you'll know how true this video is by how fast it gets deleted. Because remember, I predicted everything dead on about what would happen on January 6th, the insurrection, and those videos got big views. They were the last videos I had that got big views, and they got deleted the day after January 6th. And remember, that was a huge 201 ritual. For people who forgot, the Confederate flag flew, which we predicted it would, and it flew exactly 201 days after the only Confederate statue fell in D.C., which came out of the George Floyd protests. And of course, Confederate equals 201, and Lincoln said that the Jesuits were responsible for the American Civil War, which they scrubbed from our history books, because you can't really know what's going on in indoctrination school. You got to stay in the dark. You got to think it was just some racist white people. You know, they got a little bit too carried away. It's like, no, it's the same people that have been ruling over us the whole time, constantly causing division, controlling the papers, controlling the media, controlling the thoughts in people's minds, controlling the language, controlling the understanding of everything, so that they can constantly manipulate everyone. As they do. As they do. And again, just about Christians being another branch of Jews, which is true, who are the biggest supporters of the synagogue of Satan? Is it not Christian churches? Of course it is. Almost every Christian is so devoutly tied to supporting Israel, the nation of the synagogue of Satan, which has to exist. It's funny how the people don't really get it. But it has to exist for these same people to believe that like the biblical prophecies are coming true. So, again, you get rid of that book. You get rid of these Jesuits. You get rid of this false history, this false understanding of everything. You don't have the problems that you see manifesting all over our world. That, again, every day are executed and played out by the same old numbers. Let me pull up this story right here. I just want you to see this. Largest satanic gathering in history to take place in Boston. Again, the synagogue of Satan. I'm almost surprised they didn't choose Philadelphia, but Boston's not too far away. But again, I do understand why it's on the dates it is, because, again, the Satanic Church was established April 30th, 1966 in San Francisco. Remember, San Francisco has the gematria of 122, just like Satanic does. Satanic also equals 22 like Boston. Of course, that was last year's NBA Finals. They're always doing tributes to Satan in the NBA, and that's because Satan equals 55, and it's a game of 5-on-5, and of course, the Satanic symbol is a down-pointing pentagram, 5-sided object, Pentagon in D.C., in Satanicville, Jesuitville, D.C., the military war department that's always going to war based on some lie, 5-sided, 5 floors above ground, 5-acre court in the middle, the Washington Monument, a big dick that's 555 feet tall. Anyway, in the year that will be the year of the Synagogue of Satan, it's not hard to see why they're doing this. And Yeah, just for it to be in the headlines today on 12/29, 201st Prime goes back to what we've been talking about with Anton LaVey and his death and the Jesuits who are, behind all kinds of religious manipulation. And just so you can see the headlines from today. The headlines from today, again, Russia carries out massive missile attack on Ukraine. Again, just the latest 201. In the ongoing 201, Benjamin Netanyahu sworn in as leader of Israel's likely most right-wing government ever. And I just want you guys to be reminded that the day he stepped down, I went out to Seattle on that day. It was an experiment to see if I could use their numbers to further get out the knowledge, but it got destroyed because they had a paid-for military member there. Literally a paid-for military member, because he made a point. Here, just to rewind. I went to Seattle on June 13th, 2021. On the way there, the news broke that Netanyahu was resigning. And I said, oh, how fitting, the latest 201 ritual in Israel. But remember, when I arrived in Seattle, there was a guy waiting there, and as soon as I showed up, he walked up to me. I hadn't even done anything yet. I just arrived on the scene, and he walked up to me, and he says, if you get loud out here and make a scene, he goes, I have that set up right over there. I'll drown you out all day. He had these huge speakers. He had a fold-out desk, fold-out chair, laptop setup, and it was like a stadium speaker setup. It was super loud. I couldn't be anywhere near as loud as he was. But remember what he did to me. The first minute I got on the megaphone and started to talk about things in Event 201, instantly he turns on the music full blast, and what song does he put on of all songs? And it wasn't even me who got the joke. It was people at home watching the stream who were decoding in real time. He put on Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl. And I liked it, which is funny because 201's all over the LGBTQ agenda as well, so I wonder who's really pushing that. But, of course, the song name, I Kissed a Girl, 201. And then I still remember the next song he drowned me out with was Hakuna Matata from The Lion King. And I know that Beyonce, she did that tribute to The Lion King, and it was a big 201 thing, so maybe there's something else there with The Lion King I'm missing. But then he just kept drowning me out with music all day. And, yeah, again, the reason I knew he was military is because when he came up to me, he said, I can't remember the full extent of what he said. He was trying to put me down, and he's like, plus you're not even a member of the military. I was like, oh, so I'm not a New World Order mercenary, so I'm not as good as you are. But yeah, just some military government piece of shit paid for to be there to drown me out. And again, that's more proof that, and I mean, not that we need any more proof, you're paying attention, that I am harassed by the government, by the state. By the way, you guys, Sweet Lady was investigating that picture. The picture that Simple Troll got was from her own Facebook page posted back in spring of 2015. And so she was contemplating how anyone could have got that because the only people that she's Facebook friends with are people in Burma that she keeps in communication with that she doesn't hear. Also, her friend that lives in New York who came over from Burma. But pretty much all of her Facebook friends are just people that she communicates with in Burma, because that's the one way to talk to people in Burma is through, whatever you call it, the Facebook FaceTime app or whatever it's called. So she's like, somehow these people would have had to coerce one of my friends to give the photo. And I said, I don't think that's what happened. I said, again, Facebook's on one hacker way. Like I've always explained, all of these big tech companies are military intelligence. I'm pretty sure. And again, Simple Troll comes from a family of cops, worked for TSA. Look at the trolls in his comments. They're like, you shouldn't mess with this guy. He's got resources. It's like, what's that mean? Simple Troll has resources? He's got federal government connections? Like the same type of people that hacked me on the Ides of March on the 74th day of the year, which started, the first hack was my Facebook account. Again, Facebook's headquartered at one hacker way. Let's not forget that Mark Zuckerberg, the front man, has the same birthday as Israel, May 14th. Anyway, just want to give you guys a little update on that because I wasn't sure where the photo came from. I assume it must have been on my mom's page because I know the trolls are friends with my mom and she'll just accept anyone, and they have gone through her photos before, but it's not on my mom's account. It's only on her account, so that means somehow, some way, somebody got the pic. And also that means they had to go back through all of her photos from 2015 to find one photo of what they were really looking for, which just shows you how pathetic they are. Anyway. Netanyahu, June 13, 2021, the day he stepped down, huge 201 ritual, and now he's back by the numbers in the latest 201 Jesuit Israel ritual, which reminds you who really does run Israel. The Catholic Church, which, and again, don't forget that other troll plant that's in the truth community, No Less News with Adam Greenstein, who went to Israel. And in fact, he asked me to do his show after he came back from Israel, and it was like he was trying to debate, and he lost the debate, and that's why it's the only interview he ever deleted the next day. But I pretty much explained that you can't just blame Jews. It's not just Jews that run the world like he's always saying on his channel. You got to look at the other pieces. And again, it's like, how suspicious is that? You go on like some little secretive vacation to Israel, but then you're this guy that just only blames Jews? Is this stuff making sense? Anyway. 201, 201, 201. And then, boom, breaking today. Former Minneapolis police officer charged with assaulting a man during 2020 protests after death of George Floyd. My last book, Number Games. All about George Floyd, 201, and all the other 201s the Jesuits have been up to. And then also this, King Abdullah II, this is today's news, told CNN's Becky Anderson in an exclusive interview this month that there is concern in his country about those in Israel trying to push for changes to his custodianship of the Muslim and Christian holy sites in Israeli-occupied East Jerusalem, warning that he has red lines. Again, you guys, this is coming. We're going to see this in our lifetime. There's a reason that, again, Donald Trump, the Jesuit who went to Fordham, that they put his head on a coin to raise money to eventually build the third temple at the site of where Al-Aqsa Mosque is. And don't forget that the day that Notre Dame burned in Paris, France, Al-Aqsa Mosque also had a fire that didn't get as much attention, and they were both synced up with the first Jesuit Pope. And again, both buildings, Notre Dame and Al-Aqsa Mosque, have a long history with the Knights Templars. Again, the original military order, and the Templar cross is now in the Jesuit logo. But anyhow, King Abdullah II also said, if people want to get into a conflict with us, we're quite prepared, he said. I always like to believe that. Let's look at the glass half full, but we have certain red lines, and if people want to push those red lines, then we'll deal with that. And the whole red lines thing, again, I imagine all these people on the stage are in the club at the end of the day. Red lines. Sounds like red threads, which goes right back to Kabbalah, which goes back to doing all this stuff by the numbers in this Kabbalistic code. Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu's incoming government is expected to be the most right-wing in Israel's history, and includes controversial figures who were once considered to be on the extreme fringe of Israeli politics. This has caused concerns about the potential for an escalation in Israeli-Palestinian violence. Let's not forget that Gaza equals 73, and right before Israel turned 73, the headlines for that whole week were all of the bombing and missile strikes on Gaza. Gaza equals 73, like sacrifice, like how the 73rd book of the Catholic Bible is Revelation. And let's also not forget that the founder of Zionism, David Ben-Gurion, died on 7/3, July 3rd, and his name, or excuse me, I said David Ben-Gurion, what's wrong with me? I just said his name earlier. He died July 3rd, 1944. It's a problem with getting 2 bad nights of sleep in a row. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to look it up. Founder of Zionism, his name is escaping me right now. Theodore Herzl, his name equals 73. Theodore Herzl, 73, dead on 7/3, 44 years before the establishment of Israel, at age 44, when Israel, Zion, Netanyahu, military, they're all 44. And of course, Israel is a heavily fortified military state, thanks to us, who's paid all their bills for them. The good Goyim nation of America has done just what the Talmud would expect. But yeah, again, the whole stage is set. We're at the most perfect moment in history. Yale's turning 322. It's 2023. Israel's 74 going on 75. And I'd show you my post, but it was recently deleted along with about 5,000 other posts because they're just going down left and right on my old site right now. But let's go back to this article. October 6th, I can still do a Google search for it. 1940, New York Times, New World Order pledge to Jews. See if they've scrubbed this from Google. Thank God it's still there on the New York Times archive. I'm sure at some point it'll disappear too. But this is the New York Times right from their own website. And it was, again, all I did was document the headline and show how it was 75 date numerology. Again, 75 date numerology. So again, the fact that they deleted my post just makes me think it's 1,000,000% correct. New World Order, 75. The word order alone is 75. And Catholic Church is 75, because who pledged it to the Jews? Of course, the New York Times has always been run by Jesuits. New World Order pledged to Jews. And then Arthur Greenwood, also part of that post, was how he died by the numbers. Yeah, let's pull up Arthur Greenwood. Arthur Greenwood, born in 1880, dead in 1954, Jesuit Order 54, meaning he died at what age, you guys? Meaning he died at age 74. The guy who pledged the New World Order to the Jews died at 74? Weird. Jewish, killing, occult, Masonic, of course, modern. Again, a lot of people will explain that modern Freemasonry is Judaism for the Gentile because all the secrets are based in the Old Testament, which is the Jewish part of the Bible. And again, Jesus is a Jew. Jesus, 74. Joshua, the English translation, 74. Common spelling for Yeshua, another name, 74, just like cross, Messiah, gospel. I mean, when's that going to happen in history? When are they going to tell us that the Jewish Messiah arrived? They were kind of flirting with it. Could Trump be the Jewish Messiah? There was like even, that was published in like Israeli papers while Trump was president. Could Trump be the Jewish Messiah? Remember when Trump turned 74, they gave him that big plot of land over there too. So again, the next election's not too far off. His first one was in Cleveland. The only president with a split term was Cleveland. Don't forget the next election's the 60th. Donald Trump's 60. His ex-wife dead on the 60th week of the Jesuitic Nation year, on the day that he announced he would run for the 60th election. On the same day, they put out the 72-page report by conservatives involving 60 cases that were not supportive of Trump. But again, 72-page report. Conservative is 72 and 54 and 153, just like Jesuit Order. Holy Bible's also 153. But so is President Trump. President Trump's also another 72. And so is President Biden, who's also Jesuit educated like Trump is. Anyway, it's a little blast in memory lane. But of course, Arthur Greenwood, who pledged the New World Order to the Jews, died at 74. And then he died on June 9th. Let's look at New World Order's gematria again. If you guys are new here, again, gematria is based on the alphabetic order forwards and backwards with numerology. New World Order 75, like how it was pledged on a 75-date numerology. And then he dies on June 9th. Let's look at Catholic Church again. Catholic Church, 6975. Let's not forget the country's 246 years old right now, the U.S., while this is going on as well. Catholic, again, also has the 145-46, 46 books in the Catholic Old Testament, 145 more chapters. Israel established on 14/5. David Ben-Gurion, who did it. 145, who again died 201 days. Oh, you know what? I said David Ben-Gurion equals 73. It does, just like Theodore Herzl, in the same cipher. So I guess I didn't misspeak. It was in there all along. Theodore Herzl also has that 154 like Saturnalia. So yeah, don't expect the world to end. Just like when World War broke out, the world went on and the majority of people lived. But again, the point to understand is these psychopaths who continue to be in power, who continue to instigate war and manipulate the minds of masses and keeping them believing in the same stupid bullshit and subscribing to the same false political parties and all this stuff, they're still in power. They're going to continue to execute the same way. And we know right now we're in a phase where history is repeating itself. There's a tyrant, Putin, who's a lot like Hitler, who's another Jesuit puppet. Speaking of 69, remember this whole thing popped off with Putin when he was 69 years old. New World Order 69. Vladimir Putin, 69. Again, right when it happened, the Catholic Pope went over there to check in by the numbers, Pope Francis, and it was the 56th day of the year, if you guys forgot. Pope 56, Society of Jesus 56. It was February 25th, 225, which has to do with the Great Tribulation. But yeah, I mean, again, maybe Google should just delete the New York Times for hate speech for having this article up. Take them down. Keep them banned. It's amazing how many times I've been deleted for gematria decodes that are called hate speech. My recent video about Kanye West, how he shouldn't blame all Jews, it's not right, got taken down for hate speech, 2-week suspension. And of course, again, it's because it's Google. And what day does Google celebrate their birthday? September 27th, the day in history the Jesuits are recognized by Rome. Who's their current leader? Sundar Pichai, whose name equals 201. Also 123 like ABC. He's the CEO of Google and Alphabet Company. ABC 123. How about that, you guys? At least 39 dead in New York, where it's everything 39 in New York. In the United Nations, which is a Jesuit operation. Who's head right now? The head of the United Nations. His name's 201. But again, the United Nations building in New York, they meet on the 39th week of the year. The building's 39 floors tall. Everything, again, in New York is 39. This crazy company raised the Alzheimer's medicine price to $56,000 a year. Wonder who runs Big Pharma. Huge number with the Jesuits. Huge number over their recent medical tyranny, the pandemic, where everything was 56. And every face of the agenda was a Jesuit. So, yeah, 2023, just like I smelled a big war ritual, which ended up being Burma in 2021, and then the lead up to Russia-Ukraine for 2021, 2023. And by the way, with regards to 223 being the 48th prime, remember, World War also has that 48, as does Russia, as does Illuminati, as does Freemason, as does evil, as does tree. 223, the 48th prime, the synagogue of Satan. 223, Philadelphia. 223, Philadelphia also 65, recently in Philadelphia. The boy in the box mystery solved after 65 years. Philadelphia established on the day, leaving 65 days left in the year. Christian equals 101 and 61 like Philadelphia. Christianity equals 65. The Eagles started 10-1 again this year, like how every year they've gone to a championship, they've started 10-1. I'll tell you what, if they stick Philadelphia and the NFC in the Super Bowl, it's not a good sign for the world. That's not the team you want to see in the Super Bowl to start 2023. Here, let's pull up Revelation 3, 7 through 9. Here we go. Let's just read it real quick so we understand what's coming on in 2023. Revelation 3, 7 through 9. To the church in Philadelphia, to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens no one can shut, and what he shuts no one can open. I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are liars, I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. And again, here's going to be your story leading into 2023. Another little joke that people aren't going to get. Nice little Catholic boy who pretends to be Jewish, who pretends to have a great education, who pretends to... why are we... I mean, it's like, I bet you if you investigated almost every single person in Washington, D.C., you'd find out that all of them are the same story as George Santos. They probably don't have the education. They probably don't have the job background. I mean, most of them have come across as complete morons. They're all puppets on strings. They're going out doing what they're told each day. Cast your vote this way. Cast it this way. We need 201 nay votes for the crazy spending bill for another $1 trillion, where a lot of it's going to Ukraine and God knows what else. You know, it's just... And then the people, it's just like, and shout out to DK Stonewood who sent this to me the other day. I mean, this is why we also are where we are. And again, this is the all roads lead to Rome. Nothing's different than thousands of years ago in Rome. Nobody cares about what matters. I mean, this is it right here. DK Stonewood, or it might have been Jeff Young. It was either Jeff Young or DK Stonewood. They both send me perfect memes all the time. But this is America right here, you guys. You know, the people just outraged that their team didn't win the rigged game. But do they care at all that their whole life was destroyed by the Jesuit pandemic that they still can't see through as they go out to Walmart at Fascist Mart in their Los Angeles Lakers slave muzzle? Wonder if I can pick up any honeys, man. My Lakers slave muzzle's looking pretty fresh. I just washed it. I mean, this is exactly it right here. All of this dawned on me so clearly when I was 18 years old after 9/11. I just saw it all. It was like a light came down on me. I said, oh my God, what's wrong with these people around me? They don't care about the most obvious lie. Look at them. They're already back to the football game. Well, this Tom Brady, man, he's impressive. Here, I know what, if DK Stonewood sent that one, Jeff Young sent this one. This one's also perfect. This one's also perfect. And what's funny is that the average American wouldn't get this. That's what's funny too. They look at it and be like, I don't get it. What do you mean normal people and conspiracy theorists? I don't get it. The new normal. Okay, there's one more thing I got to do before I get out of here. I got to give Rambo's new video a shout out. Rambo's got a new video on the truth codes. The one thing though is normally I'm I hardly ever have my eyes on the screen when I'm watching other people's videos because I'm constantly working. Oh, I just got an update. There's been an age restriction placed on this video already, huh? I'm not even done with the live stream and I got an update. Age restriction. Oh man, your video was age restricted. God forbid anybody see this video under age 18. Might break them out of their indoctrination coma. Anyway, Rambo's new video is very cool, and I want to put up what he has here at the beginning. But watch Rambo's video. The only thing that he was missing with Abner Doubleday and the time of all this, again, Rambo's very good at connecting the dots, and when he gets better at gematria, his videos will be even way better. But again, he makes the point about how this guy, WQ Judge, here, I'll show you what Rambo was missing in his video. WQ Judge, this guy was an Irish-American mystic, esotericist, and occultist, and one of the founders of the original Theosophical Society. So what Rambo points out is that American baseball is credited to Abner Doubleday, even though he probably doesn't really deserve that title because it probably really wasn't him that created the sport. But Abner Doubleday was also a member of this society. So Rambo's video is about Aaron Judge. Again, we've talked about this for years, how Saturn has everything to do with judgment. From understanding, that's how we made the accurate prediction about what happened in Las Vegas before it happened, when they had the mass shooting there. Because it happened in the time of Yom Kippur, the Jewish holiday, which has to do with atonement for your sins and judgment. And again, you get the mass shooting in Sin City by the numbers. That year, Yom Kippur fell on the day, leaving 93 days left near the big Saturn number. But anyhow, Aaron Judge has this big ritual with the Yankees in the time of Saturnalia. And here's what Rambo missed in his video. Saturnalia, again, equals 154. Just like how Argentina does. Remember, Argentina won the World Cup, the first ever World Cup in the time of Saturnalia. And back when Maradona died, he died 154 days after Leo Messi's birthday. Anyhow, Argentina 154, so they just fit in with the Saturnalia sports ritual, but Saturnalia is 154, and so is the name Doubleday. And originally, American baseball, the season was 154 games long. 154 games long. And, you know, the biggest score that you can have in a baseball game is a grand slam 154. And, you know, every year you can win on the prop bet on the 154th day of the year. Just do the prop bet that there'll be a grand slam in the league on the 154th day of the year. Free money. Free money every year. Free money every year on the 154th day of the year. But, and the other year on the 154th day of the year, not only was there a grand slam in the league, there was the record, the most grand slams in the history of baseball on the 154th day of the year. There were 7 in the league in one day. Just unheard of. But you can understand the ritual, and you can see how rigged the games are by knowing this stuff. So, let me go back to this other older post as well. And by the way, Saturnalia has a lot to do with ritual sacrifice, which is another 154. And of course, the other thing I didn't hear Rambo cover in this video is how every year Aaron Judge has a huge ritual in the time of Yom Kippur. That should have been in the video. Yom Kippur. Again, about judgment. This year in Yom Kippur, he passed... what's wrong with me? The other year he broke Babe Ruth's record, home run record in Yom Kippur. Then this year he broke... This is what happens when you don't get enough sleep. I cannot think of the baseball player's home run record that he beat. The AL record. Oh my God. He hit 61 home runs in 61, and now it's 61 years later and he breaks his record. What is wrong with me? Anyway, everybody out there who knows what I'm talking about knows his name. Anyhow, this year, Aaron Judge broke that record during Yom Kippur. And he went on a long hiatus where he couldn't hit a home run, and they had to save it for Yom Kippur. But here, I just want to make the larger point about Saturnalia and 154, because, again, they did this with Aaron Judge. Whoops, wrong website. They did this with Aaron Judge in the time of Yom Kippur, or no, during Saturnalia, on the first day of the new astrological sign Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn, which Rambo does point out. But I was just amazed that I didn't hear him say anything about 154. And I'm like, how does he not know these things yet? Especially when you're bringing up Abner Doubleday in baseball. So we'll call this the Rambo addendum to his great video he put out today. Where is it at? Here we go. Oh, wait, hold on. This is Rambo's follow-up post on mine. This is the one I did. Okay. Okay, so again, 154 and Saturnalia. 93 is the Saturn number. If you spell out 93, it equals 154. Like Saturnalia equals 154. Again, we destroyed sports again during the time of Saturnalia. Just 93 rituals hitting left and right everywhere. Especially with all the Jesuit schools. It's not an accident that the first Jesuit pope has the same birthday as the first day of Saturnalia. And every Jesuit school that could go 9-3 in the time of Saturnalia did. Think about how amazing that coincidence is. And what was nice is every single one of them was an underdog too. This star that has to do with the Roman goddess Saturn is the star of Remphan, which also equals 154. And another object that's related to Saturn is Saturn's cube, which is also 154. So that's how 154 Saturnalia is. And again, Saturnalia goes from December 17th through the 23rd. Aaron Judge, his ritual came on the first day of the new astrological sign Capricorn, which was in the time of Saturnalia, where again, Capricorn is also ruled by Saturn. And no doubt, Rambo's right about Doubleday and this Theosophical Society, which I'm going to have to look a lot more into. That's a new one to me. The Theosophical Society. Rambo's got a lot of great knowledge, and truly, again, people who've advanced the work in the time I've been here, Rambo, arguably at the very top of the list. Derek did advance the research by producing his calculator. He's also done a lot of damage to the work with his decodes and the things he said, undermining other people, and even saying things like Derek's on the record saying he's a better decoder than me. He's a better decoder than Rambo. It's just like, dude, close your ego. Close your ego. Your decodes are amongst the worst. They're right there with Tony Tell It Like It Is. And again, you got clowns like Simple Truth TV who publicly criticized Rambo and said Rambo's astrology decodes make the work look stupid, as again he whiffs and does a horrible job on his Patreon in the time of Saturnalia, misses every Saturn decode, and then claims to be the best decoder as he continues to lose people money. But these things do need to be corrected. And also that simple piece of shit also is now trying to put Rambo in his mouth and act like he's his buddy. Dude, you are a fucking villain and a goon. Do not try and kiss Rambo's ass and turn him against people who've always supported him. It's just that guy, that's the problem with sociopaths and losers and people who try to become part of something because they see a money-making opportunity and that's the only reason they're here. That's who Simple Troll is. Simple Troll is on the record saying that Rambo's decodes are embarrassing for the community and astrology stupid. Meanwhile, he hasn't brought anything revolutionary to the work, hasn't advanced at one thing, hasn't made one contribution that it's his own find. All he's ever done is piggyback on others. And then when he realizes he needs to get on board, like watch, next year he'll be on board with Saturnalia and sports decodes because he realized how much money it made in my community. And next year he'll be talking about it like it was his discovery. You know, he'll be talking about the Theosophical Society and his connection to Doubleday like he found it. This is how the sociopaths work. So anyway, I do wish though, again, and I will put out criticism, I wish Rambo would get better at gematria. He does it, but it's just like every time I watch a video, I'm like, how are you missing this? This would make your video so much more powerful. And, you know, and I know Rambo doesn't like criticism either. It's like nobody can deal with criticism. But I'll still put it out there because it'll be in his mind, and he probably will work on it. So, and people need to work on handling criticism, and people say I can't handle criticism, which is totally false. I handle real criticism. I don't do well with trolling and bullet points that are false. I don't like hearing the same bullshit that's false. But if somebody comes at me with real advice, I'll say, okay, thank you, I can appreciate that. So, but yeah, a lot of people, they cannot handle criticism at all. Total human flaw. So, anyhow, I'm definitely going to be looking more into this Theosophical Society because I think Rambo's unearthed something that's probably major and connected to a lot more. Because if it's this important to American League Baseball, it's probably also connected to the other sports. And again, this is how you advance the work. You dig up a really important piece of history, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, look how important these numbers are from the society. Look at how they're doing this. So again, Rambo, arguably the biggest contributor in terms of new discoveries that are meaningful, that advance the work. There are other people. You know, even the crazy Switzerland people, they've made some really great finds that have advanced the work, but they're psychopaths. So I'll deal with them though, because they might be psychopaths and losers, but if they're a psychopath and a loser, but they make discoveries that are helpful to the work, then I'll just get rid of all the bad and I'll say, well, thank you for this. And that's the way everybody should work with everything. You know, the people I'm criticizing and who I say should stop decoding, the reason I say that is because they're not bringing anything relevant to the table. They're twisting reality. They're putting down what's real and important. And they're just like muddying the waters and, you know, putting people on a bad path. So, and they're downplaying the things that are important. I really do got to look more into this Theosophical Society. 1875. They're going to be 148 years old this year. Oh wow, they got a very interesting symbol that reminds me of the Bolsheviks. Okay. Yeah, make sure you guys check out Rambo's video. It is awesome, but just remember the 154 piece. It was the only thing that as I was listening, I was like, where's he going to talk about 154? After several iterations, the Society's objectives were incorporated at Madras on April 3rd. That's the 93rd day of the year. I gotta check one more thing. I'll have to think more about it. But yeah, very interesting work as always. Again, Rambo's channel, The Truth Codes. And if you are not subscribed, please do subscribe to his channel. Help him get his count up. And hopefully he can get his channel monetized too. So, all right, we'll leave it there, Truth Seeker. And have a good rest of your day. And until next time.